Hey guys, how's it going? Today I am here with the 2018 Lexus GX 460. Now, some of you know I just bought one of these. Not a 2018, but a 2012 Lexus GX 460 with 130,000 miles on it. I paid about half of what this one costs, maybe a little bit less. And it's a premium. This is kind of the base model that we're in today. So just know that I'm going to be bringing a little bit more experience behind the wheel of one of these than I usually would in one of my reviews, since I've owned basically the same vehicle for about 3 months and 10,000 miles just now. So anyway, let's take you around this GX. I'm going to be doing another video about how my 2012 compares to this 2018 and how it's held up over time and maintenance and costs and stuff like that. And but for this video, let's stick with this 2018. So this truck is basically, some of you may know this, some of you may not, this is a Land Cruiser Prado 120. Everywhere else in the world, here it's a GX 460. Lexus brings it over, puts some different taillights, bumpers, leather in the interior, spiffs it up a little bit, and sells it as the GX. Think of it as a V8 4Runner. It shares a lot of underpinnings, same four-wheel drive system, 6-speed automatic, and a lot of suspension underpinning, stuff like that. It's a very off-road capable truck, but it is a little bit limited in ground clearance with the front overhangs, side steps, and the rear bumper. You can put a lift kit on these and they're pretty much unstoppable off-road, but that's not really what they're used for. This is just a fantastic daily driver that has some off-road capability if when your wife is done with it, you want to lift it and throw some big all-terrains on it. So today, because of that, I have it appropriately parked at the mall where most of them will see their time. And I've got to admit, I'm guilty of this. I really haven't taken mine off-road yet. I've just put a lot of miles on it. And I'll say, as a daily driver and as a road trip vehicle, it's really hard to find anything better. This is such a comfortable cruiser. It drives great. It's kind of fun to drive too. But let's get into everything. So this GX is around 51 grand as a base model. There's no air suspension. It's coils and shocks all the way around. The engine is a V8. It's a 4.6 liter. It has about 300 horsepower, 301 horsepower, 329 pound-feet of torque, and it's mated to a 6-speed automatic. This GX, as equipped, is around 54 grand. Okay, so just know that going in. Let's take you around a little bit here. This is kind of unique to the GX, this side opening tailgate. I found it to be kind of nice. Sometimes it's convenient, sometimes it's inconvenient because it blocks your way to the curb, but it's nice. These third row seats are easy to pull up, nice and lightweight. You've got a headrest here that pops up as well. These are all manual lift and put down these days. My GX has 2 buttons here where you can do it electronically. They've taken that out to save some weight and just make it a simpler machine. Tons of cargo room. The back seats fold almost flat, except it's not going to do it. But you really do get a lot of cargo room back here. And then of course you get some little compartments here to store stuff. Gun rack, first aid kit, tools, whatever you need. Diapers, everything you need in your Lexus. In the back seat you've got these nice handles to help you up. And a ton of space back here. The leather's really soft, it's comfortable, it's luxurious, you have great visibility all throughout you. And, you know, this is a no-frills GX. Sometimes there are rear infotainment, headrest TVs and stuff back here too, but you just get some cup holders. Nice looking, attractive interior. Ergonomically, I really love the way this is set up. It's easy to find everything that you need quickly, and it's quick to change settings, and there's nothing's buried and behind a bunch of menus in the infotainment. It's a really well set up vehicle. All right, guys, let's take this thing for a drive. So, you have a reverse camera. Doesn't have turning lines, I don't think. Nope, it doesn't. But it does the job. It's a pretty wide angle. You've got lots of nice visibility out of the back. Steering is very light at low speeds. And one of my favorite things about this truck is that, and it's kind of the reason why I bought it over like a LX or a Land Cruiser, is that it's easy to place. It has a small footprint, and it's still a big SUV, but look at this. I can just easily squeeze into this parking space. No problem. And I'm not taking up the entire space. There's still plenty of room around me. That's one of my favorite things about this GX, is that it's a usable size, but it's still a really nice big SUV. I think it has a 6,500 pound towing capacity, even though this doesn't have the towing package on it. It may be a little bit different for this base model, and you'd have to get that installed. But at low speeds, really smooth, really quiet, really comfortable. The engine kind of just gives you this whooshing of air sound, and you feel pretty high and mighty driving this around parking lots. There's virtually no noise over bumps too. This is very, very quiet. Very little NVH. Wind noise is pretty minimal, and cabin intrusion over bumps is pretty minimal as well. Lexus always goes to pretty extensive lengths to separate you from the outside world in their luxury vehicles, and this is definitely no exception. The brake pedal is very similar to the 4Runner. It's probably even the same braking setup. You get this kind of whoosh at the top of the pedal, and then you pretty consistent feel throughout. No real problems. I think the brakes on this have plenty of bite. It's very appropriate for what it is. Let's do a little bit of a start off the line here. Up to 50 miles an hour. Pretty decent amount of punch. Hitting some big potholes there, you can feel just how little you felt them. That is literally my favorite thing about this car, is just how well it handles the terrible roads that we have in Michigan these days. You really don't feel anything. But at the same time, this truck retains good steering feel, pretty nice handling characteristics. There's not a lot of compromises here, and I do appreciate that a lot. The throttle is responsive off the line. There's nothing funky going on. It's very smooth and predictable, and it has a pretty decent turning radius. Now, one thing I will say, just from my own experience, this engine has plenty of power, plenty of grunt to get you around everyday situations, passing. Towing should be fine too. But out west, when I was going up and down some hills, of which we don't have here in Michigan, I noticed that when you set the cruise control, it's constantly downshifting to get you up really steep hills at 70, 75, 80 miles an hour. Now, that's fine, but it's just a little bit annoying. I don't know if they've addressed that in this newer GX. We don't really have any hills to test that on, but just something to note. There isn't a lot of torque with this engine in 6th gear. all the power is definitely in the higher parts of the power band. Plenty of pulling power at highway speeds. And as you can hear, very little wind noise. The 6-speed automatic, yeah, it's a 6-speed, it's not an 8 or a 10, but it does a really good job. It's super smooth, it's very responsive. Put your foot down, it gives you a gear. You can even manually shift it. There's third gear. There's second gear. Works well on a back road. It's got a sport mode when you flip it over. Let's take it around some corners up here and see how it does. So you're probably wondering, what about fuel economy? This is a great big heavy SUV. It's not terribly aerodynamic. 4.6 liter V8, full-time four-wheel drive. Well, in my experience with my 2012 GX, I've been getting about 17 miles to the gallon combined, no matter how I drive, where I drive, city, highway. And then on road trips, going 80, 85 miles an hour, cruising at 75, 80, 85, it does 19 to 20 miles to the gallon, which is actually, I think, for what this is, fantastic. And I'm sure that has to do with just how smooth this drivetrain is, but also Lexus kind of did some engineering, which is pretty impressive and making this just a little bit more fuel efficient. It does take premium fuel. That is one drawback, is that your gas is going to be just a little bit more expensive. I think that's still required for the 2018 model years. I don't think they would have switched that around. Now, I said earlier this has good steering feel. For a truck, it really does. Of course, this is an electronic rack, just like everything else these days, but you really have a good sense of what the front tires are doing. There's a predictable amount of tire rollover, body roll, and this does have KDSS, which is the kinetic dynamic sway bars in many Toyotas, Lexus. It helps you with off-road articulation as well as on-road handling. It's a nice system, reduces body roll, does a good job. I will say that with the air suspension, the GX does handle just a little bit better. You can stiffen up that rear end by, it's only air shocks, or there's only airbags in the back of the suspension, so you can flip a switch, put it into sport mode, and you get a little bit more of a playful handling character with the GX. I'll say that this non-air suspension, just coil spring setup, is maybe a little bit smoother, a little bit quieter over bumps. It's maybe a little bit busier too. The air suspension tends to float just a little bit more depending on what setting you have it on, normal, comfort, or sport. But this is a pretty nice balance between ride and handling. And if and when my air suspension does go out on my 2012, I may be tempted to switch it over to this coil spring setup. Pros, this is just a fantastic daily driver. I absolutely love driving this thing. It is it's a really, really solid vehicle. My girlfriend loves it. She really enjoys driving it. She feels safe, solid, like she's the queen of the road in this thing. You can see over traffic. There's a really, really nice just overall feeling of luxury and quality. There are a lot of pros to this vehicle. It's a little bit pricey. I think, you're getting into the premium lines. These are kissing 70 grand, which is a lot of money to put out for one of these. But that said, you're getting a lot of vehicle. You're getting a lot of truck. You're getting something that feels like it's going to last for ages. These things go for 300,000-400,000 miles. And this base model is actually a pretty neat proposition because it's a little bit simpler, not as much to go wrong, not that it really will. My 2012 hasn't really had any major issues at all. And the only thing that doesn't work on my 2012 are the memory seats. That's it. Everything else works, and that's pretty impressive. So anyway, guys, that kind of wraps up my thoughts on the GX. I think if you're shopping, I see when I bought mine, I was shopping FJ Cruisers, 4Runners, Tacomas, kind of, and GXs and LXs, as well as Land Cruisers. And I test drove this. Mine was a premium with the heated steering wheel and the cooled seats and all of the Mark Levinson sound systems and the Bluetooth and all this stuff. And I was like, man, this is really nice and it's not that expensive. So these are really good used deals as well as new vehicle buys. And they should last you a really, really long time, and they're very enjoyable to drive. There's a reason why people put so many miles on their Land Cruisers, just because they're so comfortable and so nice to drive on the road. And yeah, gas is expensive, but you're going into that knowing it, and the numbers aren't as bad as you may be led to believe. Fuel isn't terrible on these. So besides that, that's about all I really have to say about this. I love mine. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I'll be putting out some more videos on this later this week, and we'll be going over some more details on my personal GX. But besides that, that pretty much covers this 2018. So I'm a little bit out on the looks. Personally, I kind of prefer the last, before this new spindle grille refresh, but some of the higher trim models, like the premiums with the chrome accents and stuff, they've really grown on me, and I kind of like the look, especially in the darker blue or the black. It's a really sharp color combination. So we'll see. Maybe in a few years I'll upgrade, maybe not. But for now, this is a really, really solid truck. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you in another video later. Take care.